So hello again, everyone. Charles Banfield here with another Karate Canucks conversation. And this time it's my pleasure to be joined by Hanshi Pascal Serei. So Hanshi Serei began his martial arts journey in 1957 at the age of 4, studying Judo and Ju-Jitsu under the tutelage of his father, George, who was a World War II veteran and black belt. To this day, Hanshi Serei keeps a rigorous training schedule, often training 6 days per week. Over the years, he would also add several other arts and styles, earning ranks and titles in 10 different martial arts, including Ju-Jitsu, which he holds the 7th Dan and the title of Kyoshi, Aiki Ju-Jitsu, Yosekan Goshin Jutsu, Aiki-budo, Aikido, Shotokan Karate, Yosekan Karate, Tenshin, Shoden, Katori, Shinto, Ryu, Kobudo, has the title of Crew in Muay Thai, and in Nintai Ryu Aiki Ju-Jitsu, he holds the rank of 9th Dan and the title of Hanshi. And this is a system he developed and formally launched in 2000. In addition to all of this, Hanshi Serei also holds several instructor certifications for tactical weapons such as police baton, Kubotan, pistol, and revolver. And he is an expert and certified instructor in close personal protection services. He's also earned several accolades, and these include the Gold Belt Certificate of Merit and Honor from the Province of Quebec Sports Association in 1989, the World Taekwondo Ryu Marotokan Federation Honor Award in 2006, the American Martial Arts Alliance Hall of Honors Legend Award in 2021, and the also induction into the Canadian Black Belt Hall of Fame in 2013, which was an honor he shared with his father, George, making them the first father and son to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. In the year 2000, he founded the Nintai Martial Arts Center in Rosemont, in the Rosemont district of Montreal, Quebec, which offers lessons in Nintai Ryu Aiki Ju-Jitsu to students of all ages. So, with all of that said, very happy to welcome Hanshi Serei to this podcast. And, from the start, thank you very much for agreeing to join me today and sharing your thoughts and experiences on this podcast.
My pleasure, Charles. Thank you.
So, I would like to start like I typically do. And it's with just some general background information on you. So if you don't mind sharing, where you're from, where you grew up, and what prompted you to start your martial arts journey.
I was born in France. I came to Canada when I was 5 years old. I started the martial arts with my dad in France in 1957. So I was like, I don't know if you know Obelix, but I fell into the bowl when I was young, and I never stopped since. So 1958, we moved to Canada. My father started with some friends of his, a judo club, Jiu-Jitsu club, at Shotokan in Montreal in 1959. We actually have a movie, well, not a movie, it's from Radio-Canada, CBC, that made in 1959 a recording of our martial arts.
Oh, really? Wow. So this would be like National Film Board kind of?
Yeah, well, I guess it's on the National Film Board. It was Radio-Canada, which is the French CBC, if you want.
Yep.
Yeah. Black and white in those days.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, color wasn't invented back then, right?
Exactly.
So you really then had no choice but to start. Your father was teaching you, and I guess your brother
wanted us to learn self-defense and all that, and he was like a war veteran, right? So we started training in the martial arts, and we also, well, that was my father, had a dojo at home. Mm-hmm. Training was either at home or at the dojo itself, but it was always constant. And the good thing is because kids, they try every kind of things, swimming, skiing, hockey, martial arts, whatever.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to like what I did and just continue in that direction.
Okay. So your father, was he French national or was he Canadian?
Yeah, he was French.
French national. Okay. And so who would have been his instructor in judo and jiu-jitsu, or do you know who they were?
Trained in Paris. I don't remember exactly the name of his main instructor, but that French guy at the time was already fifth dan, which is pretty rare in those days for a non-Japanese person. Yeah, so he trained in seminars under Sensei Kawashi.
Mm-hmm.
You heard about him?
Only a passing reference. I don't know much.
Yeah, he's the one who brought judo mainly in Europe. So that's a long time ago. So yeah. There was a lot of influential French nationals, I guess, who brought several martial arts to Canada. Yes.
For karate, Sensei Soroka is renowned as or regarded as the father of Canadian karate, but I believe Sensei Ari Anastasiadis. So he was teaching before or at the same time.
For you guys, it's Canadian karate with the master, but for us, it's more Quebec. So it's Ari Anastasiadis. And I've known him because he was friend with my father too since I was a little kid.
Oh, really?
He was one of my master.
Yeah. And I know I never studied judo, but when I'm from Newfoundland originally, and when I was in university there was a judo club, and there would often be tournaments, and I had a few friends of mine that were competing and so on, and little islands of Saint Pierre and Miquelon, just off the southern coast of Newfoundland. They would always have a team, and they would often clean up, like a very, very strong judo pedigree in there. And I'm guessing it came from mainland Europe.
Well, France is still a powerhouse in judo nowadays, right? So it continues. My father is from the older generation there. So, yes, when he came here, there was some judo club, but mostly they were Japanese. There were very few non-Japanese judo club, and Aikido was one of the first one here.
Right.
In 1958.
Okay. Interesting. So aside then from your father, who would have been your key instructors or influencers over the years?
I had many of them. I had Sensei Takeyama, I had Sensei Sugino. I'm saying sensei, but they're masters, right? It's just easier to say like that. Sensei Mochizuki was also one of them. Sensei, there's so many of them. There's a Nakamura that maybe you know from Montreal also. There's Alain Floquet from France. There's pretty much big names. And what I'm lucky with is that all those people were very much, how would I say? They were very much involved into having a very good base. Not so much as many techniques, but you do have a good base to work on. That stays with me all the time.
Yeah. So even as you transitioned, or I shouldn't say transition, maybe added other skill sets to your repertoire, you kept the I guess the basics are the basics, right? Across.
Well, the basics are the basics. They're different, but when I did other martial arts, I always started from the beginning. I didn't come there as, I'm already a black belt and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. I'm going to see and to learn something new. So I start from the base. And for me, if you have a solid base, it's more important than anything else. You want to throw someone, there's basis for that. You want to punch someone or kick someone, there's basics for that too. And if you don't have it known properly, then you cannot evolve properly.
Right. So when did you start branching out into other arts and styles?
It was, I think, the beginning of the 70s. Early in the 70s, or maybe the end of the 60s. So a long time ago, I saw other martial arts and I was surprised too, because at the time I didn't know other martial arts. I was doing judo and Ju-Jitsu. I didn't know anything else until I saw other stuff. And then I said, whoa, that's interesting too. So I started to do, I was already like black belt in those days in judo. So I was looking at it and I said, wow, that's interesting. They have a different approach and this and that. So me, I'm very open. I want to learn. I love to learn. I still love to learn again. And I learn from people. I learn from many different persons just by just looking at what they're doing. The process of training is not just training for training. It's also the process of getting better at what you're doing. It's to better oneself at the same time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's to learn. If it's just for training, I mean, I can go and run around for 10 miles and I'm going to be training, you know. If you want to do something, there's two ways of looking at martial arts, you know. You do martial arts or you're a martial artist.
Right.
So it's up to you to decide which one you want to be. And it's a choice. I mean, I'm not against or for any of them. It's a choice, personal choice. Me, I want to be a martial artist. I want to be able to learn, still learn, have knowledge, share my knowledge, learn more, get better. I'm never satisfied by myself. And I train like 6 days a week. Sometimes I train 2-3 times a day. So, you know, I'm a bit crazy, I have to admit. Okay? It's not my fault, but I'm like that. But at the same time, I'm not satisfied with just doing. I have to learn something or make sure I improve myself. That's a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice. Yeah, and so back to my question about. So you started looking around, I guess, in the late 60s, early 70s, and to seeing what other things were out there and so on. What was the first other thing? What was the first other martial art that you tried after judo and jiu-jitsu?
It was Aikido, the style of Minoru Mochizuki.
Okay.
And then karate. That's the two that came like almost. Not at the same time exactly, but pretty close.
Okay. And was it the Shotokan or was it the
Shotokan Karate?
Shotokan, okay.
That's what I was exposed to, so that's what I learned.
Right. And that was through Sensei Anastasiadis, or was that?
Sensei Anastasiadis was my main master. I known him since I was a kid, like I said, so every time he could take me and show me and talk to me about martial arts, I was there and listening to him late in the evening and then train early in the morning. Yeah, that's what the life was at the time. And training was pretty hard in those days. Nowadays, it's training is hard too, but the approach is a bit different.
Right. So training was hard in those days, and you started at age 4.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing there weren't many other children training at the same time.
Surprising enough, we were a few of us when we were training. The first dojo was in the side of a church and was really basic. And the second one was in a garage that was changed into a dojo. It was hard training. There was a lot of kids. And when I got older, like, 5, 6, 7, 8, you get older, but the other ones are getting older. And you look at teenagers, they look like old people, And you still train with them because you didn't have much of a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but that's good. I mean, it's open perspective. If the thing is, if you always do what you're used to do, you get comfort.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go and do things with other people that you're not necessarily used to. Every time I go as a seminar or I receive people from different martial arts to my dojo for seminars, I train with them. I'm trying to learn whether I was a 5th Dan or 10th Dan, which I'm not, right? But just to say, or whether I was a color belt, I wanted to learn what they're doing. So I tried all kinds of martial art just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
To see what the approach is. Sometimes the techniques are the same, but the approach is different. Some people do that more for a sport. Some people do that for leisure. Some people want to do self-defense. There's all kinds of reasons, and there's all kinds of approach. I'm open. I'm very open. Actually, that's why I have many different black belts, is because I'm open. I want to see what's happening. But I also don't want to do things that are not realistic and solid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, martial art is not a show. It's not how you look. It's how you practice, how you train. And that you have to do always, all the time. If you don't train, you don't progress. Actually, you regress.
Yeah. 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 It's like the adage, if you're not trying to get better, you're getting worse, right? Like you're not
exactly the same thing. I mean, and okay, I train a lot in certain martial arts, but I did try different things. I even tried capoeira. I'm not good at it. I've tried, just for fun because I wanted to know what's the feeling, what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Did all kinds of different stuff like that, different martial arts, staff and things like that I didn't used to, because I trained in Kobudo, so I train in old weapons. But there are other weapons than those ones.
Mm-hmm.
I tried those too, just to see how it is. Whether I was good or not, that doesn't matter, just for the experience. You open your mind, you open your knowledge, you open everything, and then you learn, and it's just more package. That's it.
Yeah. So getting back to your training and as of when this is being recorded, it's June of 2023. So you've been training now consistently since 57. So that's what, 65, over 65 years now.
This year is going to be 66 years.
It'll be 66. Yeah. So in all that time, I'm sure you've had to manage injuries or, other things like that. I'm just curious, has your, I don't want to assume, but I'm guessing that your approach to training maybe has evolved a bit over time, from what I gather, you're still training hard. You're still training often, several times a day, sometimes several days a week. How do you explain your longevity in that? A lot of people in there, they're training for 10 years, 20 years, or maybe a little bit longer than that, but they need new knees, new hips, that kind of thing.
That's a martial arts, right? It's not reading, it's martial arts.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There's some things that can happen. Accidents can happen, often can happen. Unless it's really like something where you can't move, like you broke your neck, right? I'm just going excessive, right?
Yeah.
You can always do something. So if I hurt my arm, I can learn to work with my other side properly. If I hurt my leg, I can rework on my balance. It gives you opportunities to work out, to train in a different way. And it's just adding up to what your knowledge is. If you're a boxer and you want to go to a punching bag, fine. And if you cut your hand, well, then you can still work with the other hand, right? Mm-hmm. For everything. Nowadays, I shouldn't say nowadays, but it's been like that always. But nowadays, maybe more, is you hurt yourself a bit and then you want to stop completely until it's all get better. No, I don't think you have to, unless, like I said, it's really something like you can't get out of.
Yeah.
Just train. I mean, be careful on your knee. If it's your knee, make sure you have more weight on the other side. Make sure your balance is okay. Make sure you can work out of it. Use your left arm because your right is hurt, or your shoulder, or your whatever the reason. It's easier to give your reason not to than to give your reason to.
Yeah.
Longevity. What can I say? My father was 98 when he passed away. He worked. The last day he was training, and he passed away in the evening. There's ways to do. You have to adapt. You have to adjust. Mm-hmm. Eventually, even if you hurt yourself, you're gonna get better, right? So why stop and wait for nothing? I mean, if you can't walk, well, you can still sit and do your motion. I don't know which motion you want to do.
Yeah,
there's always ways to find.
Yeah. Have you ever had any over the years? Have you had any injuries that sidelined you for a while, like serious ones, or have you been
operation on the lower stomach 3 times there, the hernias? But that stopped me for what, 15 days?
A hernia operation stopped you for 2 weeks. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, you're careful when you start back. I was operated on the knee 3 times. They said, yeah, you have to wait 6 months before you. No, I don't want to wait 6 months. As soon as I don't hurt too much and I can put something on it, I'm going to start using it. I'll be careful. Hey, sure. But I'm not saying, oh, I'm going to wait. I'll do nothing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. I'm still training.
Still training. Yeah.
After 30 years as a bodyguard, I'm still alive. So, you know, some things I must have done properly. I'm not an example. I am myself. Everybody has to be themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would venture to say that your experience is probably pretty rare in terms of, you know, the longevity and the consistency of your training, right? So, but it's, again, it's an attitudinal thing, right?
But the thing is, I still want to learn, you know. I'm not sitting on my laureate or however you call that. I'm not saying, oh, I have all that knowledge. No, I'm not satisfied. I still have to train, to learn, to see what happens, to readjust. It's just helping you in your personal life anyway. Martial art is your personal life too. And I have experience both from the dojo and from my life. So I can put that all together and make sure I go as far as I can and as much as I can and learn as much and teach as much and share as much and be helpful for the other people too. Yes. Anybody who wants to learn, they can learn.
So speaking of learning and, you know, constantly being curious and you know, wanting to learn more, you know, obviously you are a pretty serious advocate for cross training, and I'm curious about, you know, what you would, to explain it to somebody, you know, who's considering, you know, taking up something different than they've been doing for a long time. What would you say would be maybe the greatest or the either single or multiple benefits of cross training?
Well, there's a lot of benefits. The first thing to do when you want a cross training, let's say we're talking martial arts here, the first thing to do is make sure you have a solid base in whatever you started before you start going, see everything and try everything, you know, and be like, oh, I'm a bit good in this and maybe a bit good in that. No, first make sure you have a good solid base on whatever martial arts you're doing. Then you can consider going and see other stuff and learn. A lot of people, they say, oh, I did this and I did this and I did that, but they're not good in any of those.
Right, yeah.
It's not cereals, you know, it's martial arts. So you have to be good in something. And then from that base, which is, if you have a real good base, then you can learn and adapt from other things, because it's not so different to do one. If you use a principle of one martial arts and use it in another martial arts, it's not that different. It's just the adaptation that's different.
Right.
If your base is very solid, you can learn other stuff. And you're not mixing, being half and half in, oh, this is not that good and this is not that. I'll give you an example. I did the karate and Muay Thai, right? They're both kicking and punching, but they're both using different methods.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a good base, you can learn both methods, and you're not doing half of one and half of the other. When you're doing one properly, and when you do the other one, you're doing the other one properly. And in self-defense, which is what I look more into a martial art, not a show, but efficient self-defense, then it's going to be good to know properly your technique, because if you want to do a good punch, you have a choice between using that type of a punch or this type of a punch, and which one you prefer or which one is useful at that moment will depend on the occasion. Otherwise, you're going to have a mix of nothing good. And you can extrapolate to anything else: throws, groundwork, locks, strangulation. Do it to what? Defense against weapons, attack with the weapons, whatever you want. It's the same principle.
Yeah. So would you say, so you're saying that, you know, you need to have a strong base in your, you know, foundational art or style, whichever. So then is the approach to acquire the best elements of other things and add to your, or is it to
How can
It's like learning a whole other language then, you know, like with when you're learning the other style.
How can you know which is the best of that martial arts or this martial arts if you don't really know them?
Well, maybe not the best. Best is probably not the right word, but you know, the components of it that work for you, like in your body style and so on.
To know that, you have to practice it. And then you can say, oh, this is not the best, but this is better for me. But in a real life situation, which is not a competition situation, but a real life situation, what will you do? You have no idea because you're reacting to something that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you have to have something solid and you're going to use the technique that you know. But let's say you're good in something, but the position or the moment when this happens makes you being in another position to do something else that you're not as good as, but you know it. Your body knows it. If you don't know it, that's it for you.
Yeah.
You know that. Well, it's another weapon into your weapons. You have an extra weapon that you can use. You didn't think you're going to do that because you're not that good to do it. But it just happened at that moment on that specific situation, that was the best thing to do. And your body just reacted for it. That's what you're doing, you know? So I'm not saying this is the best for me and this is the best for me. I'm going to try to learn what's really the martial art I'm adding or martial arts I'm adding, whichever.
Yeah.
And from that, with time, when I train and all that, with time, it's going to become yourself. And then you won't think, oh, I'm doing a punch because it's a karate punch, but now I'm doing this punch because it's a savate punch. And I know I'm doing that punch because it's a Thai punch. No, it doesn't matter. At that moment, it's going to be natural. But to get there, you have to train and practice.
Right.
And the mind of the practice is learning, not doing what the other guys are doing or not being better than the other guys. Bettering yourself, oneself, to be better. Learning, progress. That's it. There's no secret. It's people want everything all done. Oh, I'm going to do MMA because they do all this. Well, even in MMA, first of all, they have regulation because it's a sport. Second of all, the best in MMA all have a good base in something and learn something else. They don't do like, oh, I do this and this and this and that. They're good and they add to their knowledge. Me, I'm pretty open. I want people to know as many martial arts as they want. The other thing you have to know is, why do you do the martial arts? You do it for leisure. You do it for sport. You do it because you want to see other people around you. You do it for martial arts, pure martial arts, traditional, or do you do it for self-defense? That's a choice. Me, I started the Nintai Aiki Ju-Jitsu because I wanted a martial art that specifically goes for self-defense. Not looking good, not being the first in the competition, none of those. To be as much as possible, realistically able to defend myself, my family, my friends, or whatever, in whatever situation. That's it. So it has to be nice, yes, but it has to be efficient. And when you practice, you make sure that you don't hurt anybody. You know, you practice properly.
So the system that you've developed, in the introduction, I mentioned at your martial arts center, you teach people of all ages and so on. Is there a lower limit to the age of children that you teach, or is it?
The ages start at 4, but they're by groups. There's 4 to 5, for example, and then there's a 6, 7, and then there's different age. And after that, when they get teenager, they get with the adult classes.
Right.
So there's different training methods for each of them. You know, when I teach kids, it's a lot of play, but the play has to be directed for martial art, not just playing around. It has to be for their coordination, their speed, their balance, their knowledge, their respect, and everything that you want, and technique. So that's a lot of play, a little bit of technique. And the more they get older, less play, more technique. And for me, and that's my idea, I don't understand why we would give a black belt to a kid.
Yeah, that's we're skipping ahead a little bit to a question that I like to ask everybody.
Just
So
because you ask different ages, so I'm just making sure we're talking about the same thing.
yeah, of course, yeah. So I'll come back to the black belt thing a little later, but so at approximately what age then would you say that you start introducing, the harder, I guess, self-defense kind of techniques? Like
You have to be at least 13 years old.
at least 13. Okay.
Yeah, because before that they're growing, their bones are not there, their muscles are not there, their coordination is not there. And it's the learning process. You want to make sure that the process is going gradually. After that, you can start not being hard on older kids, just making sure that they understand the difference, against bullying and all that. Because kids, I mean, they're training, they have fun, but if they have fun, they also have to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not tyrannic. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's a learning process. You have the kids, they want to learn, and they also want to have some order in their life. So when they come to the dojo, they have respect. They learn respect. They learn everything. They learn careness with the other people. They learn to share with other people, and that's very important nowadays. Of course, the self-defense is still there because in their mind, they're already playing like somebody throws you down, somebody falls on you, continue on the ground, somebody punched you or kick you a little bit. So they understand what's happening. And if something like that will happen for them, eventually they might not defend themselves in the real sense of defending, but already do something that would help them to protect themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the first little base that we put into the kids.
Yeah.
If the kid can say stop and leave me alone hard and be ready in case, that's a good step. Not going for a fight because they want to show that, hey, I do martial arts, I'm better than you are. No, you're not better. And when I make them fight, for example, with whether it's ground fight, standing up or whatever, I always tell who won. And the beginners say, I won. I said, nobody won. And the other kid says, no, nobody won. We all learned. That's what you need, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to say, hey, good for you, it's good. No, it's a process that has to go gradually up. And then you're going to learn. When they become more young adults, let's say, it's time to put more techniques and less games, right?
Right.
Still has to be fun.
Yeah. So how does or where does competition come into your approach to teaching?
In my style, there's no competition because it's self-defense. You can't break somebody's arm, finger, back, neck. You can't strangle him. So there's no competition. So what we do is free sparring.
Free sparring. Okay.
Free sparring. And then there's different kind of free sparring. So they might fight just punch and kicks. They might fight hand-to-hand combat on the ground or standing up or a mix,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that. It's only sparring because there's no fights for medal, no fights for number one, nothing like that. That's competitive. That's a sport. I'm not doing a sport. I'm doing self-defense.
Right.
The sport you have, and I did competition too. I agree with the competition. I'm not against it. I'm for it. There's no problem with that. But you have to make a difference between a competitive sport, combat sport, and a real martial arts, traditional, and I would add a martial art that does self-defense only. Because in the street, there's no judge. There's nobody that will stop anything. It's you or it's them. It's your family or it's them. It's your kids or it's them. That's it. That's all. In a sport, which is very good, and some of them are like super in shape, There's nothing to add to that. But it's a sport with regulation and with even doctors around if something happens.
Mm-hmm.
it's not a real life situation. It's a tense situation that you know you're going to go for because you know you're going to have a competition. My adrenaline will go up because I'm ready to go for a competition. And maybe even I know the other guy, maybe I saw him before, I saw videos of it. But in real life situation, the adrenaline is coming up like this, and you have no choice. That's when it's happening, and that's it, that's all. Nothing is prepared. So the only way to prepare is to not train for the show, but train for the goal.
Right. So this is a good segue then into a theme that I like to discuss with the appropriate guests on here. And this is something that I first really got into with Sensei Bill Wolf. Previously, I had interviewed him, and also with Sensei Scott Horgat. Forgive me, Sensei. Hogarth. And that's around exactly what you were just talking about there, you know, the topic of martial arts and self-protection. And, you know, as somebody who has, you know, obviously extensive experience as, you know, a close personal protection professional, and you were saying before we started recording that you worked as a, you know, security or a bouncer, and so on. Obviously, you see the link, the merits in, you know, training in the martial arts for self-protection or that kind of profession. What are your thoughts, though, on the most appropriate approach for setting the context and instructing civilians in fighting systems? You know, like basically, you know, making sure that we're keeping them out of dueling situations where, you know, they could either be seriously injured or they could end up in legal jeopardy, you know, because they agreed to be a part of a street fight or something like that.
Yeah, well, I'm not pro street fight. Actually, I'm against fighting in general.
Mm-hmm.
Survival is different from wanting to fight.
Right. But in terms of, you know, but how do you, because a lot of people, at least in my own experience, I've seen this a lot. And at one point, I guess I was also subscribing to this way of thinking, but a lot of people get into the martial arts so that they can fight, you know, to learn how to fight or to learn how to protect themselves, protect each other, whichever else, or people that are close to them. I guess, how do you go about approaching, like, don't do this on the street unless your life's in danger? Or, like, is it that stark, or do you approach it in, this is only for in here, we're practicing this in here? I'm just curious about your approach.
But the main difference, you know, in the case of my martial arts, I don't want to talk, other people will talk about their own martial arts. In the case of my martial arts, we're practicing for self-defense purely.
Purely for that.
The difference between what we practice in the dojo and what's happening in the street is not the technique per se, it's not the approach per se. The difference is the violence of what I'm doing out of the dojo if something happens, the speed of what I'm doing when something happens, the efficiency of what I'm doing when something happens. That's the main difference. In the dojo, you have partners. So even if you train hard, you know, sometimes you hurt yourself. I mean, that's martial arts. What can I say? Sometimes you hurt yourself, but it's not purposely. I mean, it just happened because that's what we're doing. When you're outside, somebody attacks you, your friend, your family, your daughter, sister, whatever, yourself, it's survival. So the same technique will apply, but the speed I'm going to do it and the violence I'm going to do it with is very different. That said, if somebody pushes me because he's drunk and somebody pushes me and he has a knife in the hand, I'm not going to have the same reaction.
Right.
You know, I can control the first one and say, okay, you know, take a break, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, make sure he cannot do anything, but take a break, relax. Somebody who wants to really hurt me or my family or my friends, it's him or it's us.
Mm-hmm.
It's them or it's us, because we say it's him. It might be 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 10 people attacking you. You never know, right? But let's say something happens in the street and you fall down and you're out. Do you think you can control what's going to happen while you're out? Do you think there's a judge or somebody that will say, stop, the fight is over? No, the guy can put your head off. So the reaction is like that. My choice is this. I want survival or I don't want survival. When I practice, hey, tomorrow people are going to school or to work. They still need to be able to walk, to be able to write, to be able to do stuff, you know. But in the street, it's not the same thing. So I think the difference is the way you practice your martial art, the intent behind the martial art. Nowadays, we use martial art as a general word that includes traditional, non-traditional, mixed, sport, and so on. But martial art, well, what was it at the beginning? It was war. Mm-hmm. Kill or be killed. That's the martial art. You know, they develop in different countries different ways, and nowadays there's some mixed too in there, but basically that's what it is. It's survival. Naturally, nowadays, because of sport, and sport changed a lot of the martial arts, they lost a lot of the real self-defense orientation. They go on sport, and when you do sport, you have to protect the people. That's why you have regulation. Each sport have their own regulation. Why? Because each sport is different. Mm-hmm. And it's safe, and it's safer for everybody that you come out of there, you're still alive, even if you're bleeding or whatever, right? That's the main difference. And so you want to do martial art because you want to do self-defense? Make sure you go to a school that they're teaching you real self-defense, not something they saw in a book or something that's not practical or that shows very well but doesn't work. You have to be practical, efficient, and you need a good teacher. Choose. There's many schools. Choose. I'm not saying do that art or do that art. I'm not saying do that, go to that school or that school. Choose. If you think you're in the wrong school, change school. Mm-hmm. If you go to the neighbor school because it's the neighbor and it's practical, that's not a good reason. You know, me, it's my life was based on that. My father was a warrior. My grandfathers were warriors in the First World War. We are warriors still.
So that is you're saying you're training for the goal. So that is, you have a singular goal, I guess, typically when you are teaching, when you're training for yourself.
Yeah, and what I'll show to my black belts compared to my color belts is not the same. Even if sometimes it's the same technique, the way they apply it will be very different because they have some knowledge. Mm-hmm. And don't worry, being a black belt is not the end of the world, it's the beginning of the world. So, and if I give seminars, unless I'm with the people for like a few days, I won't show them stuff that I show to my students because they won't really understand. Because the base, again, is so important. So you want to see a good martial art, you have to make sure you have a good school, a good teacher. You want to make sure that your base is strong, that they show you the right thing, and they don't do this. They don't do this for the show. They do this because if you want it as a self-defense, if you want it as a sport, you have this. You choose another school that's oriented to sport, and then if you have a good teacher and a good coach, they're going to bring you right up where you want to be. So it all depends on what you want to do, because martial art is now a generic word. It's not anymore martial art. It's a generic word.
Yeah,
and you have many different styles from many different countries. And if you want masters in your martial arts, you don't have to go to the original countries, because nowadays you can find real masters in many different countries. You know, before it used to be Korea, China, Japan, and then maybe Thailand. And then we understand that, oh, well, yeah, but if you go to France, you have very good ones. Oh, and then you go to Germany. Oh, wow, they have really good guys there too. You go to Canada, you go to wherever you go, you can find the good ones if you look for. It's not the title, because the title and the rank has nothing to do with the ability of the teacher. Yeah. That's a full, complete other story.
Yeah.
So that I can go. If you don't want, I'm stopping here.
Well, actually, no. It's a good thing. The next thing I was going to ask you is so if somebody is looking for, let's keep it on the self-defense side of things.
Okay.
Because, like you said, self-defense and martial arts are not synonymous anymore because martial arts is a generic word now, a generic term. What would be some red flags for you if, somebody is claiming or some place is claiming to be a a self-defense school or self-defense studio? Well, what are some things that you would look for that would make you think maybe not?
The thing you have to do when you go into school is look at what they're teaching and who's teaching and how they're teaching. That's basic.
Yeah. But for a beginner looking either for themselves or for their children or whichever.
If you see that, for example, the teacher is really a bully, that's already a red flag. Okay. If you see that the teacher is there for the show, is showing stuff and that's a red flag. If you see that the teacher is talking all the time instead of doing all the time, it's a red flag. There's many red flags. Like I said, you go to your neighbor dojo, yeah, it's fine because it's right there. It's easy. Mm-hmm. But that's not a good reason to go to that place. It might be. It doesn't mean it's not good. But it's not the only reason why you should go there. You should check first. And if you don't know, read about it. Nowadays, you have Google everywhere. You want to see what they're doing? Go on Google, go on YouTube, go on Facebook. You're going to see. Don't look at picture. Picture is static. You can make pictures of everything. Look at what they're doing when it's in action.
Yeah.
Look at how they're doing stuff. How do the guy approach things? How do the guy, especially if you want self-defense, how do they do the stuff? And are they like, okay, I'm not going to say that. Are they like not efficient or proficient in different stuff? And what they're doing, it looks good, but it's not really good. Try to see the details. Even if you're not a professional or if you're not a black belt, try to see what's happening with the teacher. And if you go to seminars or if you go to other places, train with other people than the people you're always using to train with. Try other stuff. It's going to open your eyes. Maybe you will like it, you'll do it that too. Maybe you won't like it, you won't do it. Doesn't matter. Life is long. You don't do that day, you'll do it another day. Doesn't matter. But try other stuff. If you're somebody who's already a color belt or a black belt, and let's say you do one karate style, one style, and you go to a place where they have different martial arts, including different karate style. Why do you go to that same style that you know, or the teacher that you already know, or the student of the teacher that you already know? Just go try something else. Open your mind and see what happens, That's it. It's very simple. It's like opening one book or opening many books, not together, one after the other. Read, and then you will learn with time. What can I say?
I want to pick up on a little something. So you were talking about, we were talking previously about, when you started looking at different arts and styles, outside of Judo and Ju-Jitsu, and you mentioned that Aikido and Karate were amongst the first, right? Have you found, like, in all of the arts and styles, and there's other combat sports and so on, like we didn't mention Savat, you've been a practitioner of Savat over the years as well, and other things. Are there any that really complement each other well? Or maybe the harder question is, or maybe the easier question, I don't know. Are there any that don't really go well together at all, that the approach or the philosophy is kind of opposite each other? Well, in your experience?
Not really. The only thing you have to look for, if that's what you're looking at, is one going for self-defense or the other is traditional and this one is for sport. And me, I want to do sports. So in that case, you should look at combat sport, if you want, martial arts, that are all aiming for the same thing. The way they're aiming is different because their approach is different, but they're going into the same direction. Otherwise, I would say that you can do any style of karate or taekwondo or savat or Muay Thai, that they all of them are punch and kicks, you know, or not including elbows and knees.
Right. But in maybe I'm not thinking about this correctly, but I was just thinking like listing down through the things that you have done and you've trained in, you know, in my limited perspective, you know, two that are on your list are very different from each other. So Aikido and Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Very, very different, right? So I guess where I'm going with this is, are there commonalities between the two that you are able to transfer, you know, one into the other one? Or is it like learning Japanese and French?
Yeah. If you go into those extremes, not necessarily, but they still give me something, because any martial arts is for survival at the origin.
Mm-hmm.
Just evolve differently nowadays, right? And then when I say nowadays, I'm not talking the last decades, I'm talking like many decades, right?
Yeah.
Evolve differently. But they all give you, but many of them also have some common point. Even if you take, for example, let's say judo and karate. You say, oh, it's very different because judo is throwing mostly of groundwork and locks and strangulation, and the other is punch and kicks. But actually, when you look at the body motion of some of the techniques that you do in one or the other, some of the techniques are pretty close. You look at the Maegiri, for example, and you enter an Osotogari. When you enter it properly, you're going to do that front motion with your hips and enter, boom. One we're going to kick, the other one I'm going to throw. There's adjustment, but basically you're working the same way. Or you get out of the way because somebody's coming to punch you, well, like they do in Aikido, or like they do in Nintai Ryu, or like they do in some of the karate style that are more round than others. And you're going to see, whoa, they moved. Yeah, they moved. They didn't stay in front of the locomotive that's coming on them. That's maybe a good thing, you know, and you can adapt, and there's sharing. And then you notice that, hey, I did that, and that placed me in some position where I can do something different from the same position. Wow. Instead of having one way of defending myself, now I have 2 ways or 3 ways or 4 ways doing the same first motion. Oh, wow, that's cool. If you stick in your mind there always, you know, then that's where you're stuck. You're not like a horse, you know, when you, I don't know how you call that in English.
The blinders, yeah.
Yeah, well, they can't see, right? They have to turn. No, I mean, open it, and you'll see all that's happening everywhere. Me, the martial art I do has a lot of everything because it's self-defense oriented. So to learn to defend yourself, you also have to learn how to attack somebody in one way or another. Because just as an example, you learn to defend yourself on somebody that you do karate, right?
Yes. I've done several other things. I do karate. I'm also doing Ju-Jitsu now. The real, I shouldn't say the real, that's bad. The original Ju-Jitsu is what I meant to say.
But let's say you launch on someone with a tsuki or tsuki, straight punch.
Yeah.
That's a good way of attacking, right?
Depends on the situation, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You just said it.
Yeah.
Answer your question. It depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Right. If I want to learn how to defend myself on somebody who attacks on Utsuki, maybe I learn how to do it. If I want to defend myself on somebody who wants to do a sonage on me and throw me hard on the ground, maybe I should know how it works so I can learn how to defend myself. So actually, I'm not learning just to defend myself. I'm learning how to attack and do the motion, because the more I know, the more I can defend around. So in my style of defense, Nintai Ryu Aiki Ju-Jitsu, we do all kinds of front kicks, punch, whatever, and throws and locks and ground and up and all you want, because not only I want to defend myself against all those, but to learn how to defend myself against all those, I have to learn how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
If I never received a hook in my life, always straight punch, the guy who's going to hook me is going to get me. Because I don't know how to defend myself on that. So I'm not saying you have to be proficient in every one of them, but you have the knowledge. If you have the knowledge, you can learn. That's it. It's very simple, but nobody applies that because they want to do their own thing and stay like focused like this. Open your mind.
This part out, but you remind me a lot of Bill Wolf. I interviewed him about a year ago. He's a retired military, like combat veteran, Canadian Armed Forces, and judo background, jiu-jitsu background, Aikido background, but he's keeping alive this combatives system that was developed in the Second World War for Canadian and American special forces, like the first special forces group that was developed, the Devil's Brigade, they call them. And he's also a former police officer in British Columbia, and he speaks very differently. Obviously, he's an Anglo, and he has a different perspective on things. But at the same time, he's saying the same thing as you are. Really, really similar. Very focused. He's got a singular goal, and it's assertive confidence is what he's trying to instill. Is what he keeps saying. Because you want people to fulfill their mission. You want people to, if your mission is to win a competition, great. If your mission is to survive,
very different.
Very different, but it's the same. It's that assertive confidence that the training will allow you to have, right? Regardless of what techniques you're using, what weapons you're using, exactly. The same mentality, right? And
you can adapt.
Yeah, and you two are the two that are the most similar. Speaking about that, at least from the people that I've interviewed so far, right? So it's interesting getting it from two different perspectives, but it's coming together almost the same.
He has experience in combat, right? I have experience in combat, so I have friends in military too, and I trained some of the SQ Sûreté du Québec. SWAT.
Sorry, the what? Sorry.
Sûreté du Québec, the SQ, the police, the SWAT team.
Oh yes, okay, yeah.
I have experience in combat too, so my perspective is efficiency, adaptation, and efficiency. From a military point of view, when I talk with my friends, they're the same thing. It's efficiency and adaptation. And that's how I look at martial arts. I mean, when I was younger, I was looking at martial arts. Hey, I'm young, I'm good, I'm doing sports, I'm competition, I'm this and that. Wait. And now I realize with time that, what's martial arts? That's it. So my perspective changed a lot. That's why I developed my martial art to be different from other ones. Because there's a lot of martial arts that claim that they do self-defense. Nowadays, it's the new trend. I do karate self-defense. I do jiu-jitsu self-defense. They even change their name to street jiu-jitsu, combat jiu-jitsu or whatever, Yeah, it's good marketing.
Yeah.
But reality is that you have to be efficient. That's it. And in every situation, you have to be, because you don't know what's going to happen. Competition is a different animal. Because competition is all, what's going to happen. You're limited by regulation. You have doctors. In real life, you don't know what's going to happen. You turn the corner, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. In my own research that I've been doing over the years and so on, one of the things that I was kind of prompted to, which I find is very, very true, is if you want to find out what the most effective techniques are for, say, self-defense, whichever, look at the rules for MMA. And all the things you're not allowed to do are on that list, I
always said MMA is great, and the athletes are like unbelievable, right?
Yep.
Just before the bell rings, I'm putting a knife in the center, and let's see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, nothing against MMA. I know many people who train it. I have a lot of respect for it and the people that do it, but it's rules based, right?
Yeah, yeah. Any sport, any combat sport.
Mm-hmm.
That's safety for the practitioner, and that's great. All of them have their own rules, but like I said, throw a knife in the middle. Say you can gouge the eyes if necessary. Say you can go to the throat because you're so strong and you can't do anything. You can go for the throat for survival, and then maybe either finish him up or run for your life. Because you don't have to fight. You can run.
Yeah.
Make sure that the guy cannot run behind you. You know, that's the strategy of combat.
Yeah. So as we established at the beginning of this conversation, you know, you've been involved in the martial arts for, you know, over 65 years. What do you think is the main thing that has kept you involved for that long? You know, you've never gotten bored of it, obviously, you know.
For me personally, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm never satisfied by myself. I want always to learn more. I'm 9 dan. It doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
I need to learn. I need to get better at what I do. Obviously, you get older or wounded or whatever, you have some restriction. That doesn't stop you. You just have to adapt, you know. And me, because I'm never satisfied by myself, I want to continue. I want to know how to better defend myself against knives, against handgun, against a bat, against people who want to knock me down, people jump on my friends or my family. And I see there's always more to learn. And that's the only way I can progress. And since I'm never satisfied with what I do, I have to learn more. So I have an open mind on that.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they're satisfied with what they do. That's good for them. If that's what they want, that's what they want. They want just a black belt, get a black belt. But a black belt is nothing. It's just to hold your uniform. Black belt is the beginning of everything. It's not the end. It's basically going to school and finish to learn how to do some sentences with your letters that you learned. That's it. Now you want to write a book or do something. So it's time to start to learn. Because you have theoretically, you have your base. Okay? Now you have to do something with that. Continue your training, learn, come back to your base, because you forget your base, you get worse, not better. And when you train into something, don't be satisfied with what you're doing. Check what went wrong. You kicked I kicked like 500 kicks. Hey, that was a good training. No, it's not a good training. Yes, you sweat, but is your first as bad as your last? Then you didn't evolve. Go, like I said, go to run 10 miles around the block and come back. You'll have trained enough. But if you want to do your 500 kicks or your 20 kicks, doesn't matter how many, and make sure that your last one is better than your first one, maybe you learn something. And that has to be with everything all the time. Every time I go to train, I want to be better. Every time I do that technique that I know, I mean, I've been doing it for 5,000 times. Do it 500,000 times. Make sure it's better. That's it. And me, that's all I do. That's all I do. Mind you, I was a swimmer. I was swimming a lot because my father used to be a water polo guy before the war. So I learned to swim and learned a lot. I played squash for years, but I didn't stop my training in martial arts.
Yeah.
You know, even as a bodyguard, I'm stuck somewhere in the middle of nowhere in God knows what country. I'm in a bedroom and it's time to sleep. I put the bedroom all upside down and I train in the bedroom for an hour and a half, because I don't want to lose anything. I want to get better. And if I see something that I see from somebody whether it's higher rank or lower rank, and I see, oh, that's pretty good. I'm going to try to understand what happened. That's, curiosity. People go in their training and they do their training and then they go home. And then they go to other places where they have other trainings. Even in the same school, they have different martial arts. I do this. They don't even look at what's the other. Like I said, have a good base, and then maybe you don't have to. You can stay in what you're doing, or maybe try something else and add it up. But if you always go there and, you get belts with time, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, you don't get belts with time. You get belts because you train. A lot of places, they give you belts because you've been there for a long time.
Yeah.
A lot of places, you're going to get a black belt, then you get a Shoden Nidan, and then a Sandan, and then, oh yeah, he's been there for 20 years. Did he work? Or was he just there?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a red and white belt? Did you earn it? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not the one to judge. You personally can judge yourself. You have a red belt, same thing. It's not the number. The rank and the title doesn't count if you didn't really earn it. That's all. And like I said, if you stop training, you're just there to show stuff, well, you're going down.
Mm-hmm.
And black belt is the beginning. You have your black belt. Yeah, now you can do something. You learn some bases, hopefully. You just didn't get it. You earned it. And again, for me, no kid, but that's another story. And you don't get the title of sensei because you got a black belt. That's another story also.
Yep. Yeah.
Sensei is sensei, and a sensei is just a teacher. You can call a 9 dan, 10 dan, 8 dan sensei. It's not bad because it's what they are. They have different titles, or they don't, depending. But if you say sensei, it's not bad because they're all sensei. But you cannot be a sensei because you just got your first degree of black belt. Come on. Or a kid, come on.
Yeah.
You need some knowledge in life also, because martial arts is life. Well, I'm a bit strict because I'm traditional, not in the sense of being traditional in what I do, but in the spirit of, if I do martial arts, I'm doing self-defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Survival of the fittest? No, survival, period.
Yeah, no, this is strict. Strict is good. It has its place, obviously, and the path that you've taken, I guess it's it conforms to your way of thinking, obviously, right? So you are breaking it down to the origins, the original reasons for doing it, and I find with my own training right now, I'm reverse engineering a lot of things, or I'm attempting to, within the system that I train. And, for me, this the most exciting part of the training is uncovering what else it could be, right?
Exactly, because knowledge is, there's no stopping in knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Speaking of knowledge, here's a question that I like to ask as many people as possible, and it's a two-part question. So you can either answer one part or the other part or both. I'll leave it to you. So, so the question is, if you could do, like looking back on your martial arts experience, if you could do it all over again, is there anything that you would do differently than you did, or is there anything that you know now that you wish you knew sooner?
That's a good one. Because I did different martial arts, starting at different period, but I went far in every one of them. I don't regret anything the way it is. The only thing I would say is I would have wished that when I was younger, the warms up before training itself would be more advanced technically. because nowadays we have knowledge of the human body, right? And in the older days is who is the toughest? So do that and do squat with somebody on your shoulders. And what about my knees? So in those days we didn't ask questions, right? What about my shoulders? What about my back? What about this? Throw him like this, throw him like that, throw him. No, why throw him 25 times when you can throw him once or twice and do the entry properly like 20 times? Why punch the guy all the time when you can stop the punch, not extended your arm, because then you're not even touching the person, but going all through him and stop just on time so you don't go all the way to him? Do push-ups with someone on you. It's so bad for the shoulders and for the back and stuff like that. But in those days, is hey, you can do that. You're tough. Oh, you're tougher than this guy. You did 20 and he did 10 only. Nowadays, we know that there's many things we can do that are good for your body, and they don't hurt your body. And you get power and you get stamina and you get all that, but you don't hurt yourself. When I was younger, that part was sort of survival of the fittest. Yeah. That's about the only thing. The rest, I'm happy. I would do the same thing again. I would start with what I started and I would continue. I was exposed to other martial arts because in the beginning I was training, doing my martial art, and then I saw people that were dressed sort of like me, but they weren't doing the things I was doing. I said, oh, that's interesting. And then the other guys, same thing. It's and they're different from the other guy that was different from what I do. And then came all the movies and all those stuff that were just pushing more and more. In my case, it didn't change much because I was already in it. But I was happy to see that in the movies. I can't blame it. You know, I was happy to see Bruce Lee and all that came after him. But it helped also to develop the martial arts in general. Because when I was young, I mean, I give you an example. When I was young, I was in the school. And because I was doing judo already, when there was a fight, we were accused all the time. I wasn't even there, but it didn't matter because you do judo, it's your fault or something, you know. It's like, not really. I wasn't there. I was like over there, but no, you know, for one reason or another, it evolved. Yeah. So knowledge of the martial arts came because of the movies a lot. Otherwise, it was small groups here and there that knew about martial arts. They read maybe about it. They saw maybe a school and so on, and they join in. So no, my only regret is not how I did it. It's just maybe I would hurt less in some places if I would train that crazy way.
Yeah. Oh, we all have those regrets for sure.
Yeah.
We get reminded of them.
Yeah, you can train hard nowadays, you know, warm up very hard, but safe too. So
yeah. That's a good answer. I like that one. Do you have a proudest martial arts related moment or achievement, or do you also, or do you have like a most prominent moment where you know, like the penny dropped, you know, where eureka moment, I understand something. Do you have anything like that?
I'll tell you something. It's in my story. The way I realized that sometimes it's the basics and the details that are important is when one day I was doing judo, right? And I was pretty good in the competition, and I had my own few techniques that I would do either standing up or on the ground. And one day I'm at the dojo and I'm training, and we do randori, you know, freestyle sparring on judo, you know, and we were standing up, so we tried to get somebody down. And I enter my techniques and blah, blah, blah. And then my teacher just walks around, and I was a young rooster. Hey, I'm good in competition. I do martial arts, you know how it is. I was 20, whatever, young 20s. He says, that's good. When you enter, put your foot like this. And he continues. He didn't stop. And I look at him going, and I said to myself, it works when I do my things in competition and in the free sparring, you know. That's good. And then when he was at the other side of the dojo, we had a big dojo at the time, and when he was at the other side, I said, I'm going to try it. Now that is not there anymore. And I entered and I went, boom, and the guy went like, boom, and I said, oh, Just that little thing changed everything. And then that's when I realized that it's not the big thing, it's the small things. And when you add small things one after the other, you get to the big thing.
Yeah.
You get it slowly, and you have to understand. And a good teacher should understand what going to help one particular student, because none of them are the same. None of them have the same quality physically or mentally. None of of them can do the same thing the same way exactly. And the role of the teacher is not to show something, it's to guide the people and to help the people. And a lot of teachers, they want to show what they know, and they want to show off. And even when they don't understand enough of the things, of the little things, to tell you that this will make a difference to you, not to you. And that's a big thing. And that's when I realized, and that's a long time ago. I was in my 20s, I'm going to 70 now. So it's a long time ago. But I still remember exactly when, where, and how it happened.
So that was definitely a prominent eureka moment for you then,
That was my eureka moment of the martial arts. And I applied that for every martial arts I did afterward.
Yeah, a seminal moment for sure.
Yeah.
So speaking of techniques and so on, do you have a favorite technique or set of techniques that you like to, I don't know if they have universal appeal or if you just have a favorite thing that you like to do when you're working with students, or a favorite technique for dealing with a situation?
Since I'm working more self-defense, all the techniques are good if they're good at the moment I use them.
So no favorites, like a favorite way to enter.
Attack me with a knife, or somebody attack me with a staff, or somebody attack me with a hook, or somebody attack me with a whatever. The situation will tell me what's going to happen. I'm not deciding what I'm going to do. It's adapt to what's happening. Okay. You can attack someone to defend yourself. There's no I'm defending myself. I wait for him to punch me down and then I'm going to defend myself. These people, are mixing the two things. They're mixing aggression and attack. When I defend myself, I have two choices. I wait for the attack to defend, or I attack before or when I'm attacked. That's it. And I'm still the one who's defending myself. And the other person is still the aggressor.
Yeah. I'm
not.
Yeah.
So because I say that because sometimes they say, so your martial art is more defense or attack? It's both. It depends on the situation. The only difference is I'm not the aggressor. I'm still the one defending myself. And like I said, you can also run away if necessary. You don't have to fight. But if you run away, you have to make sure that the person or persons that you run away from are not able to follow you and jump you on your back. Because otherwise, everything is worthless.
Yeah. Yeah. You're able to run to safety and not to another problem. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, no, I don't have a... Listen, I started with judo. I'm still good at throws. Actually pretty good at throws.
They're fun to do.
Pretty good on the ground too. And I'm pretty good at punching and kicking and at strangling people. So I'm not saying I have a preferred one. It's the situation will tell me what to do. The person comes to me and attacks me. He's the one telling me what I have to do. I'm not judging because he's tall and big or he's small and tiny or it's one person or two or three person. I'm just going with the situation. And when you train, what we do is the free sparring, not the competition, is to work on the reflexes, not only the heartbeat. Mm-hmm. The reflexes of you don't know what's going to happen. The guy is attacking you and you don't know how and you have to react. So the guy attacks you, that's free sparring. You don't know which attack he's going to do and he doesn't know what defense you're going to do. So that's how you manage to work it out. And do I have a preferred technique? No. I'm open to whatever you propose me to do to you.
Right.
A different way of doing.
So this, I guess, and I probably already know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. So what about favorite concept or most important concept in your approach to training or approach to teaching?
Well, when you train, you have to train for reality.
Mm-hmm.
Not for the show, not for a competition. I'm talking self-defense here, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you have to train for reality, and you have to be as close as possible to reality. But contrary to somebody who's going to go to war in 2 weeks, I have time to practice that. Now, if you tell me, oh, I need you to give me a seminar because we're leaving in a couple of weeks for whatever war or whatever, I'm going to give you a very different training than I'm going to do for someone who wants to, oh, I want to learn self-defense. Okay. And if she says self-defense, I'm going to say, you have a day and hours, 2 hours, a week, a month, or do you don't have time? You can do that for years. That's going to give another approach too.
Mm-hmm.
So my concept is adapt.
As somebody who's, trained, been around the martial arts all your life, your entire life, essentially, what would you say that the martial arts have given you?
It's difficult to say because I cannot tell you the difference between how I am and what I would have been if I wouldn't have been in the martial arts. But what I can tell you is that it teaches you discipline, respect. It makes you feel more confident, fit, but mostly discipline and respect.
Yeah. So if you were describing the benefits that you just listed there of to somebody who is completely ignorant of all martial arts, but is considering something, what would you say is the greatest benefit of the martial arts in your own experience?
Self-improvement.
Self-improvement.
You're not there to be better than someone. You're there to be better than yourself. It's not, you don't do martial arts like you do ping pong or you do baseball. It's very different.
Mm-hmm.
They're all like good for you. I mean, I have nothing against any of them. Actually, I was pretty good at ping pong when I was young. But
maybe that's the secret.
Yeah, maybe that's the secret. But no, I mean, it gives you confidence and it gives you a good step in life. Because if you can surpass yourself in the martial art, you surely can surpass yourself in whatever you're working at.
Good. Well, we've covered a lot of ground here, and again, really appreciate this discussion. I'm just wondering if there's anything that you wanted to add or anything you wanted to discuss that we haven't already covered.
Not really. All I'm saying is that everybody has to find their own path. And if you do something because more people are doing it, or if you see something because you think it's fun, that's your prerogative. It always depends on what you really want.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do the martial art because of the sport, choose a sport-oriented martial art. There's plenty of them. You have the karate, most of the karate are sport, taekwondo, judo, sambo, name it, BJJ, whatever, If you want something that's more like educative and just to make sure you're in a good health, you can do many styles of very soft Aikido, because nowadays there's a lot of Aikido that are very, very soft. They're more oriented on that than the self-defense that they used to be in the older days. You can do Tai Chi, there's plenty of choices. If you want to do something that's more oriented for self-defense, make sure you go to a school that teaches you self-defense, not makes you think you're doing self-defense. Because somebody attacks you with a knife, you're going to be dead.
Yeah.
If you're not dead, you're going to be cut all over the place and you'll be dead not long after. You think because you do 25 years of martial arts, you can defend yourself against a knife? Good luck. So choose properly what you want to do with whom. And if you think you're doing something somewhere and it's not what it's supposed to be, or you don't like the way they do it, or whatever the reason, find another school. Doesn't matter, you know, and change the martial art or just change the school. Maybe just the school is not good. Who knows? But you have a choice. And like I said, you want to know what people are doing? Go on Google, go on YouTube. This is the teacher and this is what he does. What do I have? I have nothing. Oh, red flag. Oh, I have only picture. He's doing this and he's doing that, but it's only pictures. I want to see what he's doing really. For that, I need video. And it just happened that nowadays there's plenty of videos. So you'll see if it's fake or if it's good or if it's good for you or if it's not good for you.
Yeah.
Choose. The world is at your feet. You just choose what you want to do.
Yeah.
Me, my path is made already, but I'm not finished learning. I'm not finished training, and I'm not finished practicing, and I'm not finished sharing, and I'm not finished helping the others. So my path is directed, but I'm not finished. Everybody has their choice.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything right now, like you're constantly looking for something new to learn and so on? Is there anything right now that you are focusing on at this time?
No, because I think I've covered a lot, but what I'm looking at is always whatever martial art or combat sport they're doing, I'm looking at what they're doing, and if I see something interesting, I'm going to try to have an idea of what it is really. Not imitate. Imitate is impossible. It's fake news, like they say. It's impossible. You cannot monkey something. You have to feel it and do it, you know, and do it properly. Repeating a technique that you saw with somebody else, if you don't really understand what's happening, won't be good. And if you are a teacher and you're taking something from somebody else that you didn't really master, if you want, you're going to teach something that's bad for your students. And you know the old videos when you had a one copy and then the second copy? Second copy was not as good, and the third copy was even worse, and the fourth copy, yeah, well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I see something, I'm going to try to understand how it happened. And if I never saw that, which is pretty rare nowadays that I never saw that, I want to see how their approach was. Why? And then if I don't see it properly on one person, I'm going to try to find another group or another person that does the same thing and how his approach is. And then we'll say, oh, that's good, or that's not good. Oh, I shouldn't do that. Oh, that's pretty good. I'm going to judge what's happening. And if it's interesting, I'm going to add it. Why not? To my knowledge. Not necessarily my students, but my personal knowledge. Because my personal knowledge is not the same as the other students. But whatever they learn, I can help them. And that's the point. And whether they're my students or whether I'm giving a seminar, international seminar or whatever, if they want to learn, I'll teach them. If they want to imitate, they won't learn. Because everybody's different. And if they don't have the right base, it's like a house. You build a house on sand, you know what happens.
It's not a house for long.
It's a nice house, but not for long.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So martial art is a way of life, and martial art is my life, and I'm not the only one. I'm happy to be here still, but I'm not the only one.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing, you know, your experiences and your insights and so on. You know, over 6 decades, closing in on 7 decades, I guess, of training.
More 7 now than 6.
Yeah. Yeah. Where could people find you? You know, if anyone's watching and curious about checking you out, where should people go to?
I have a website on nintai.ca.
Nintai.ca. Okay, I'll make sure I put it in the description of the video when I post it.
YouTube. They can also, if they put my name down, they're going to find me too. Me, videos everywhere, so I don't mind people looking at it. I tell them in advance, you want to learn, it's not on a video,
Mm-hmm.
not on a book or on a video. You want to learn, you really have to train. There's no other ways.
Yeah.
Like being a mechanic, can read all the books, but when you have to repair the car, it better works.
Yeah.
Nintai.ca, you're going to find a lot of stuff on it. My name, my martial art name is Nintai Aiki Ju-Jitsu.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll put your website in the description accompanying the video when it's posted. So,
Okay.
so yeah, Hanshi, again, thank you so much for
My pleasure. It was
joining
fun.
me today. Pardon me, sorry?
It was fun.
It was fun. Yes. Yeah. I love doing this stuff. I know I've met so many people, so many people doing this, and I always learn something, or I always get a renewed appreciation for something as well. And
It's a good state of mind. You're still learning.
yeah, I don't know if I'll ever stop.
That's good. That's
At
even
least
better.
I hope not.
Yeah, that's even better. You're still young.
Yeah, well, I'm getting less young, but I guess that's the whole goal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, Hanshi, really appreciate your time today and your willingness to share. And I hope we get to speak again at some point and
Hopefully.
and meet in person.
Just ask.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.